RP Show brought to you in part by Landmark Cinemas. In Landmark Cinemas now, The Monkey. When twin brothers Bill and Hal find their father's old monkey toy in the attic, a series of gruesome deaths start. This movie's classified a horror, starring Tatiana Maslany and Theo James. In Landmark Cinemas now, The Monkey. Well, we have had a trade today as we bring in Tim Hunter, Stanley Cup champion, NHL veteran. The Edmonton Oilers acquiring Trent Frederick from the Boston Bruins, so they're joining the party. Hey, Tim, welcome back to the RP Show. And how are you, my friend, by the way? More importantly, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rod. Still here in Arizona for another few weeks, then back to Calgary for 8 days, and then I'll be back to Calgary the second week of April for the summer.
Do they know the hockey team's gone there, Tim? Be honest.
They do, and it's kind of depressing. I mean, even though it was a crappy situation to have the team in Tempe at the ASU, it was nice to go to those games because it was a small venue. It was like being in the old corral watching a hockey game. Very intimate and close to the action. But yeah, it's a shame. And but I hear rumblings that there's a group trying to bring a team back here through some of the local politicians and possibly Shane Doan and some other guys that heavy hitters with dollars. So maybe that'll come to fruition. Who knows?
God, I hope so. It is such an awesome market. Yeah, I hope it comes to fruition. Okay, so what's your take on this race? We're clearly in the home stretch, and the moves that have been made, Tim, and maybe what you're expecting to see.
Well, it's going to be a dogfight. You know, Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah. They're right there, and they're not going to catch anyone in front of them, I don't think. But for all those, that last spot is going to be a real dogfight, and you know, it doesn't seem to be anyone that, you know, each team has its fits and starts, and they stumble and they get going again, and so. I mean, my big concern for Calgary is their scoring. They just have not been able to generate enough offense. You look through their lineup, and Uyghur's not scoring like he did last year before. Anderson's not scoring, so they're not getting anything from those guys in the back end. And then they don't really have a driver up front offensively. 20 goal scorers, 2 of them, and then that's it. It drops right off. So really was hoping that Frost and Farabee would bring a little bit more, but who knows? It may start to happen sooner or later.
Well, okay, pardon me as I look up my score app, and yet they're in a playoff spot the last I looked. My God, does Ryan Huska not deserve a Purple Heart? For the love of God, Tim, what he's done with his team? Yeah, they're in the 8th hole.
Well, yeah, no question. He has, but I'll tell you the other thing, that the 2 guys that tend the net have done a yeoman's job as well, both Vladar and Wolf. I know Wolf is getting a much more recognition, and Calgary couldn't seem to score for Vladar for the longest time, and he got a big win the other day. And so, yeah, it's the goaltending, and obviously their differential between goals for and goal against is really bad. Their penalty killing this year is nowhere near the way it's used to being in the top 5, top 7. And that was when Huska ran it. Now he's the head coach and it's dropped off, which is a little surprising. But no, you know, it's that spot is going to be a lot of those problems with all those teams. St. Louis, Utah, Calgary, Vancouver, they all have their warts, but they're all knocking on the door, and somebody's going to make it. It's the team that gets things going here in the last 20 games or the last 15 games. And you're going to have to win, you know, maybe 14-22 or 15-22 or somewhere in that range to get yourself in. 60 points, I think it's going to probably be low 90s or high 80s to get you in that last spot.
Just for fun, John Ohm in Winnipeg with a good question. He says, hey, Tim, what are your thoughts and chances of a Canadian franchise winning Lord Stanley? Who's the best option or pick, do you think, right now to do it?
Well, obviously, it's Winnipeg. They've had a great year. They have so much. They have so much depth. They have great goaltending. they get offense from the defense, and they've got some guys having career years. So, if you look at the opposite side of that, with the teams trying to push to get in, they don't have any of that going on. So, the powerhouses, Florida. I think Tampa's coming on. Dallas is a good team. Vegas, I've watched Vegas a few times lately, and they impress you, but they don't. They're a real workman team, but they don't have a lot of flash. It's a different team. There's some guys there that you're unfamiliar with that are probably going to surprise some people down the stretch and in the playoffs when they make the playoffs. But I wouldn't. I'd put my money on Winnipeg as a Canadian team. I bet they're in the last four in the end for sure.
Actually, then, further to that, how do you feel about them making moves? I feel like their fan base is somewhat split. What do they say? If it makes us better, we'll do it. But what would make them better?
Well, I haven't really looked closely at their bottom six players. Their top six is very good. I maybe something in their bottom six to give them a little more depth. Centerman that can kill penalties and be a little more gritty and a bigger guy. That's always helpful. Good penalty killer, a guy that can move up and down the lineup. Utility player. Never a problem getting more size and more toughness in it, because the playoffs they get a little heavy in the playoffs. The bigger teams, the big D, you got to fight to get pucks, and you got to battle those big D on the opposite side, and so maybe a little more size. But Winnipeg does have a very big team, and you look at Washington; they're a huge team, and they're a team that at some point I think the wheels are going to fall off, but. They have, and they lost 3 in a row, and then they won. I think it was last night they won, and so I don't know if they're quite legitimate yet. But I think size is important and depth in your bottom six.
I know this. I would assume our viewers do. Tim coached with the Leafs and the Capitals and various other teams, so you know Ovi really well. Did you think he'd get into a position to be 11 goals away from breaking Wayne's record? And it looks like he'll do it by the end of the month. How do you feel about that?
Well, my second time in Washington, I had him, and he's a really interesting person. I've never seen a guy get so excited to score goals. Like during a game, it's next level, but in practice, he's just like a little kid out there pounding the puck in the net. And I used to pass him pucks after practice, and those one-timers are terrifying to see, and to look at his stick and see how he does it's amazing with the curve he has on his stick and how he shoots the puck. But the best thing that ever happened to Ovi, and I'll tell you this, is that he got married and he settled down a little bit, because he was a bit of a wild man. And as you see, when won the Stanley Cup, he knows how to celebrate things, that's for sure. And getting married, I think, slowed him down and brought him a little more grounded, and probably put another few years on his career. And he's used that to his advantage. And there's nobody like scoring goals more than him, or has the ability to score goals like him.
What makes a great shooter? If there was one answer, everybody would do it. But in your mind, what is it?
His timing and his adaptability to where the puck is. So he can shoot the puck anywhere in his wheelhouse, and his wheelhouse is quite large. So you just got to get it in his wheelhouse, front foot, back foot, ahead of the front foot, behind the back foot, and he's going to make contact with it. And he is such a powerful guy. His torso, front to back, is the same size. Side to side, front to back is the same size. He's like a tree trunk. Most people are wide, but they're not as wide front to back. Well, he's as wide front to back as he is side to side. He is a massive torso on him, and he twists and uses his legs to catapult that puck like you would not believe. It is, I mentioned just a few minutes ago, it's mortifying to watch him shoot that puck. It's amazing, the glass. I'm surprised he doesn't dent the post. It is just going 100 miles an hour.
You played against Brett Hull. I don't think you played with him. Would that be comparable in terms of power?
Well, I did play with Brett Hull briefly. We had him for a little while, and then we traded him to St. Louis with the Rob Ramage and Walmsley deal. Yeah. We had Hull. He's a real character. He's a great guy, and Hully was very similar. He had the same sort of shot and a crazy curve on his stick as well. Not quite the upshoot that Ovi has, but Hully was the same. And you look at the passes that Adam Oates used to put in his wheelhouse, and Oates is one of the best passers in the game, and Hully could shoot it anywhere in that area, from the 6 inches in front of his front foot to 6 inches behind his back foot or in between, and it was going 100 miles an hour, and he knew where it was going too, which is amazing. And so the adaptability and that torso, Hully has massive gluteus maximus and thighs on him, not unlike Ovi.
We get going, and I could talk to you for hours. I miss you Flames guys, Tim. You guys were so good to me. I miss you. And and hopefully we do it again. We spent so much time together. I had such a great time there. Does Vernie know that Dustin Wolf is coming for his records? Is he aware? Have you talked to him about it? Because it's happening.
Well, Vernie's a big fan, and we've had this conversation. And a year and a half ago, Wolf had his issues. He wasn't quite as good as he is now, obviously. He had the small goalie problem where he was starting to drop too early, and he was letting small goalie goals in up over his shoulders. And the goalie consortium, I would call it, with Calgary, with all the guys that are part of that group, and great guys, great group. They do a great job with the goalies in Calgary, and got them to be a little more patient, stay up, and don't let those small goalies goal beat you over the shoulder. And so I had that conversation with Vernie, and Vernie said, "Yeah, that took me a long time." And then I got stuck where I was frozen. I was getting beat through the 5-hole. So, it's an experience thing, and it's an adaptability thing. And both Vernie and him have shown they can do it. And I wouldn't doubt if he becomes one of the best goalies of all time in Calgary.
I love it. Well, and I love when they say quarterback's the toughest position to play in sports. It might be, but I'd like to put a quarterback in net and see how he does. You know what I mean? I think being a goalie is the toughest thing. Our poll question, Tim, is this. Can you take a swing at it? Who should be on Team Canada at the Olympics? Macklin Celebrini, Connor Bedard, or Mark Scheifele? None of which were on the Four Nations team.
Well, that's a good question. Probably all three. There's guys that were obviously on Canada that won't be next time around. I don't believe Marchand played very well. I think he's getting a little bit long in the tooth. He's for one, and then it depends on other guys, their drop off, and but all great players. Celebrini, I've been very impressed with him. Obviously, it's easy to play on a team that has nothing to gain or lose. They're just playing along and playing their string out and trying to improve as an organization and get their players experience. Chicago's the same, Bedard, but I think Bedard his growth has been stunted this year for whatever reason. They could name lots of them. And Scheifele has quietly become, one of the best players in Winnipeg hockey history. 330 goals, and he's a real, and the big part of him, which I like, is he's such a big guy. And I'll take the big athlete over the small athlete any day. They've got reach, they've got size, they've got range, and the small guy's going to lose out in a battle. Yeah, that's a great question, but I believe in all three of them, and I think by the time the Olympics come around, they'll all be much better players, and they'll be out of their funk. Obviously, Bedard and Celebrini will be so much better a player by then. He's a different player than Bedard. One's more of a goal scorer. The other guy's, He's not unlike Wayne Gretzky. If you're to compare him to anyone, he's in and out, deking and diving, spinning, making fantastic passes. He's got speed. He can score. He sees the ice unbelievably well. He's a heck of a hockey player. It was a great pickup by the Sharks, and they're doing a great job developing him.
Thanks for the answer. It's fun to chat about. Well, Tim, we'll let you get back to the beautiful Valley of the Sun. Always good chatting with you, man. Let's do it again soon.
You bet, Rod. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Stanley Cup champion Tim Hunter joining us from Arizona. Oh, I feel like we can get into all of these things when we come back, but it's just me and you the rest of the way. The Progressive Insurance text line's open, 902-518-3033. Switch to Progressive and you could save a bunch. We could get into the NFL stuff. I know there are CFL fans here that were writing in. If you had, whatever, we're going to do open phones the rest of the way, plus a sports update. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV, streaming live and podcasting wherever the best podcasts are found.